Hi, I'm Greta Price. I hope that we'll be able to spend quite a bit of time together over the next several weeks. Today I wanted to share with you the first chapter of my ideas, really just a rough draft, a thought process, really, meanderings, if you will. So I've been doing a lot of self-reflection. One of the things I've noticed is that in almost everything, it's not personal, it's just business. In the movie You've Got Mail, Meg Ryan's character says, if anything should be personal, or if anything is anything, it should start out by being personal. I don't know if I agree with that, because most times when you're in a crucial conversation and the stakes are high, the emotions are running strong. And people have different agendas. And most of the time, it's not about me at all. How egocentric of me to think that someone purposely would want to hurt me or purposely would want to see me fail. I don't think that's the case most of the time. Most of the time, our own insecurities and our own shortcomings make us feel it, that things are about us when they're really not about us at all. So that kind of brings me to my first chapter. It's not me, it's you. When to admit you're wrong and when to say, nope, that was all you. So, I've been through many breakups in my life. I have a very wonderful husband and I have a wonderful relationship now. But when I was in high school, I would get very bored of boyfriends. I mean, 3-4 weeks tops, that would be good enough. And I always like to use the same line. It's not you, it's me, and I just need some time to find myself. I need some time to spend some time with the Lord. I need to get to know myself deeper. But really, it was all about them. They weren't right. They weren't right for me. They weren't right for my situation. They weren't my life partner. And I could tell right away that I wasn't going to marry them. So what was the point? So I used the it's not you, it's me analogy to try to make them feel better. So I didn't hurt their feelings because I didn't want them to think it was personal. It really was just a business transaction. They were not compatible with my needs. They were not compatible with me as an individual. And as soon as I found that out, I ended things. Now, does that make me cruel and heartless? Maybe, but probably it just makes me pragmatic. It makes me realistic, and that's why I chose someone who was actually right for me. Now, I say all of that to say this. Sometimes in business, you get in conflict. It's a human interaction. It's a human nature kind of thing to be in conflict with other people. Since the beginning of time, man has been in conflict with God, and then we have been in conflict with one another. Since Cain and Abel, we've been in conflict with one another. So why is that? Well, we have differing agendas. We have different personalities. And as we discover our personalities, we kind of figure out, sometimes I don't want the same things you want. Sometimes I have different ideas. And sometimes when we get into those heated conversations, when we realize that a relationship has been fractured, there's a time to accept responsibility and there's a time to not accept responsibility. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that would be. So what if it was your fault? What if it was all you? And what if it is your fault? Well, so there's a variety of different reasons why we have to own responsibility for our actions. A couple of years ago, I was organizing a class, and I failed to communicate a very crucial piece of information to my team. And I continued on, and I was a pure oversight on my part. My intentions, I knew, were completely pure. I carried on, and I didn't think it would be that big of a deal to carry on because it was an education thing. And what difference does it make to the managers if something is right or if it's exactly how I said it? Don't I have the free will to go ahead and change things as I see fit? Aren't I the education specialist? Well, what ended up happening was they felt very distrustful of me because I didn't live up to my end of the bargain. And it was me. That time it was me. And instead of owning my mistake, I defended it. And I tried to say that they don't have the right to tell me how to do my job. They don't have the right to tell me what kind of education specialist I should be. They're not getting their master's in education. They don't know about these things. But really, I had fractured a relationship. And a good friend and a wise person called me aside and said, Greta, I'm really concerned. There's some overarching concerns about your integrity as a person. There's some overarching concerns about your honesty. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And I have to admit, I didn't deal with it well. I cried. I cried a lot. I cried in her office, and then I cried in my office, and then I cried on my way home, and I cried the rest of the evening. It took me several weeks to process through what she had said. But she was right. My integrity had not been what it needed to be. I had not owned my mistake. Instead of standing in front of that group of rather intimidating women and saying, you're right, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I should have communicated that with you, I didn't. I defended my mistake, and I didn't own my own integrity. It took me a lot of self-reflection to get to the place where I actually knew what I had done wrong. It's really important when you realize that you did something wrong, however long apart it is from the actual incident, to own your mistake. What I decided to do was to go back and truly apologize and earn back their trust. And pure lip service wasn't going to do it alone. So I had to figure out a way to actually earn back their trust. I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I don't know if they actually trust me to this day, but I know I'm trying. I'm owning my own integrity, and I am truly sorry for my lack of integrity in that event. It's not enough to say you're sorry. You have to really be sorry. And when your integrity and your own intentions truly match up with your actions, people can tell your true heart. People can always tell whether you're being sincere or not. And, you need to feel it for real. You need to own that mistake and really see what they were seeing when they viewed that incident. Another thing to think about is, you never really know until you walk a mile in their shoes. And, just like how we don't understand what someone else is going through until we've been in their position. And even then, our life experiences, our background affects the way that we deal with that. So us being in a situation does not mean that we completely understand what it would be like for someone else. I was very blessed to be raised by confident women that weren't afraid to speak their mind, women that believed in the power of leadership and the power of success and the power of caring and love and integrity, and weren't afraid to share those things. But not everyone is like that. There are many women that I work with that are afraid and insecure and not confident. And they approach situations differently than I do. And I have to appreciate that although I am not in their situation, when they handle a situation, they'll handle it differently than I would have. And that's okay too. Which brings me to my next point. Sometimes it isn't you. Sometimes you're not the one that makes the mistakes. But that's okay. In your head, you can say, oh, I think that was all you. But in your heart, I want you to own your part of the situation. And then I want you to kind of self-reflect as well. So sometimes it wasn't you, but you still need to be humble and own your own integrity. So think about the popular adage, what would Jesus do? So if he was truly not wrong, which we know Jesus did no wrong, then how did he own his own integrity in situations? He simply reflected on the truth, and he was compassionate about people's emotions, about their feelings, and he looked into how they felt about a situation, and wasn't afraid to explore their emotions with them. Sometimes you have to own your own integrity, but don't self-reflect to death. Sometimes there's not anything that you could have done differently. There's not anything you could have done differently. Think about that for a minute. If you could live your life with no regret, how much joy would that give you? How much power? If you could truly control your actions in a way that you could own your own integrity, how would that change how you approached business, how you approached leadership, how you approach success? Would it change it? There's always something to learn in every situation. Maybe you couldn't have changed the outcome of the situation, but maybe you could have handled it better. Maybe you could have given more encouragement. Even Jesus was persecuted, and workplace violence is alive and well. In nursing, we call it eating our young. It's very prevalent. It's unfortunate. But in the hierarchical medical society that we live in, where people are rewarded for additional letters behind their name, for more power, for more knowledge, we even have our own medical jargon. So we can talk about things and people don't know what we're talking about because we speak in other terms with our own nicknames and our own everything. It's part of it. So just be thinking about that. Even Jesus was persecuted. And there are people out there who would like to see you do poorly. Maybe not consciously, but just remember, it's not personal against you. Sometimes that's their issue. And all you can do is own your own integrity. And sometimes that's the best thing that you can do. I love the quote, well-behaved women rarely make history. That's why we have so much conflict as leaders. If you are always making everyone around you happy, you're not doing something right. There's something that you're not standing up for. And there should be a part of you deep down inside of your heart that knows that you're not standing up for one of the values that you believe. There's always something that's right. My boss is a very wise woman, and she has a number of quotes that are going to be woven throughout this series of talks. But one of the things that she says is, it's not the hill to die on. And there's a lot of things that aren't, but there's some things that are. There's sometimes you have to take that flag and stand up on the top of that hill and risk your life because it is the hill to die on, because it's worth it. In my case, it would be for patient safety or for the right thing. Sometimes it's just the right thing to do because it's supported by the evidence or because it's supported by literature, research, whatever that may be. The last part of this talk today is be proud of your mistakes and get used to apologizing for mistakes that you didn't make. Part of leadership, I love the quote from A Bug's Life by Hopper. I remember the first time I saw it, it was before I even had seen the movie. It was actually at a leadership training seminar. The first rule of management, everything is your fault. It is so true. Not all managers are leaders, but all leaders are managers. Or vice versa. Not all managers are leaders, but there's a lot of leaders that happen to be managers. So just kind of be thinking about that. Own your mistakes. Be big. Put your big girl panties on and say you're sorry for stuff that you had no control over. Apologize for their emotions. Apologize for their feelings. Acknowledge that they actually are hurting. Don't be afraid to take a hit on something that doesn't matter anyway. Just don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm so sorry. Sometimes half of getting through the day, winning the battle, is acknowledging stuff that you had nothing to do with. But it's important as a leader to be looking at those things as well. I hope you enjoyed today's talk. When to admit you're wrong and when to say, nope, sorry, that was all you. Always remember to own your own integrity, and remember, it's not business, or it's not personal, it's just business. Have a great night.